In this video, I'm going to be showcasing OpsRamp's discovery to resolution capabilities in the form of a brief day in the life use case. Now, before we begin the demonstration, let's do a quick overview of the platform itself. As we all know, IT operations has not gotten any easier. As organizations and enterprises continue to move towards hybrid applications and workloads, IT operations has gotten a lot more complex and chaotic. That's where OpsRamp comes in. We've really centered the platform around three core use cases, and it all starts with hybrid resource discovery and monitoring. That's of many technologies, be they on-premise, public cloud, private cloud, multi-cloud. We then layer in event and intelligent incident management and round out the platform with remediation and automation capabilities. OpsRamp has natively built all of these capabilities ourselves on a modern SaaS-based AIOps platform that provides true multi-tenancy, role-based access, and robust configurable dashboards. OpsRamp customers see many benefits with the platform, including centralizing and simplifying monitoring, understanding resource dependencies, detecting and resolving incidents faster, improving governance, uptime, and reliability, saving time and costs, and improving IT operations and business alignment. Now let's dive into the demonstration. I'm going to begin our use case by stopping the SQL service on a Lightsail instance in AWS that OpsRamp has both discovered and is monitoring. And I've got a script that's going to do that for me. And we'll wait for a second for that to process. Okay, so now I can see that we have two emails that have been sent out by the OpsRamp system to notify me of this down service. Let's work through resolving this issue. Now, as I drill into this alert email, of course, we can configure what information is presented here. I'm also here to tell you that we live in a time where resource names really don't give us all of the context and information we need about a business service. Now, OpsRamp, as a service-centric AIOps platform, allows organizations to tie these hybrid resources to business services and applications. So I can see here that I've got the SQL service, it's no longer running on this resource, and it's impacting the accounting application. Now let's work on resolving this issue. I'm going to drill into the alert itself. And we can see that that takes me here to the alert in OpsRamp. Now, one of the things that we've really focused on in the platform is actionability. Throughout the entire UI, we give users the ability to take action in many different methods or forms. So I can see here that I have the details of this particular alert, the history of alerts on this resource, incidents that have been opened against this resource. I've also got impacted service groups listed down below here. And if I scroll down, in my environment, I actually have OpsRamp not automatically opening an incident in this case, ServiceNow. Instead, I've got the machine learning or the OpsQ bot recommending that we open an incident. And this is not manually entered information. This is information that the machines have learned over time. So OpsRamp believes that we should open up a ticket, we should route it to the database group with a subcategory of the SQL Server. We can see the subject has been recommended as well, including a couple knowledge articles. I do this for demo purposes so we can show you how the machines would automatically open this incident up. Now we're going to come back to that here in a second, because a couple other things I want to show you here are available in the top. Now the first thing I'm going to do is run a script against this resource, because the alert tells me that SQL's not running. I might want to just double check that. So here I'm going to execute the script to see what is and is not running on this resource. As we're waiting for this to report back, I will mention that everything that I'm doing here in the platform does not require a VPN connection. This is huge, especially in this day and age where many of us are supporting our data centers and our hybrid environments from home. Now I can see here as well that yes, indeed, the SQL Server is not running on this resource. So now I can begin some troubleshooting. Right now, in fact, maybe the next step, now that I've validated this, would be to create that incident. So maybe I'm going to go ahead and do that right here. We can see OpsRamp has all this populated, so I'm just going to go ahead and save this. And again, I'll reiterate the fact that in a normal production environment, what we just did would be fully automatic. Now I also can see an incident ID here. One of the things that we hear from IT operations folks and DevOps folks time and time again is that they're really not huge fans of collaboration tools, especially ITSM tools, right? If we're tasked with restoring service as quickly as possible, I don't necessarily want to alt-tab over to a Remedy or a ServiceNow or a Sharewell. I just want to stay in my operations platform and continue to work through this issue. And so what we can see here is that OpsRamp actually has an inbuilt IT operational incident management system, right? So I can go ahead here and let's go ahead and say, hey folks, on the service desk, we see this issue in the NOC. We're working to get this resolved as quickly as possible. We're going to go ahead and we're going to submit this as open. Now I do have an integration with in my environment with ServiceNow, and if we were to head over to ServiceNow for a second, poke the refresh button here, I can see here is an incident. We can see it started off as new, but since we've updated it, it is in progress. And as I drill into that incident, we can see here that OpsRamp's populated the incident itself. And we can see the CI has been populated. We've got a link back to that OpsRamp operational incident. We can also see down below the collaborative nature here, right? So there would be the note that came from the folks on the NOC. Maybe we're going to reply back. Thanks, keep us in the loop. Let's go ahead and post that back out here. And of course, that's going to make it back to OpsRamp as well. Now, something I'd like to point out here is that not only can we leverage machine learning, of course, to create and correctly populate these incidents, but we can continue to learn even after they've been created. So if I were to maybe say, well, this should be a higher impact or a lower impact, maybe I want to change assignee group, maybe this goes to a particular individual. When I re-escalate that or reroute this particular ticket, that data is sent back into the OpsRamp machine learning engine, and we learn from that so that we really do get you out of the care and feeding of the the many escalation rules typically found in an organization. Okay, so let's head back to the OpsRamp here. We can see. Now, I'm going to go back to the alert itself. Let's show a little bit more of that actionability. So I already run a script. Maybe the next thing I'm going to do here is kick off an RDP session into that resource. And again, no VPN required here. Doesn't matter if this is a cloud resource or an on-prem resource. We're leveraging full role-based access control for these remote sessions. And every session is recorded and can be played back as well. So we do get that full audit trail also. Now I might put in here something like checking SQL. I'm going to use credentials here. OpsRamp does have a fully encrypted credential vault available, so I'm going to choose that credential. And here now I can see that I am remoted into this resource. And so maybe what I'm going to do next is just hop into services and then validate. If we scroll down here, yep, SQL Server's not running. Now, of course, I could restart that from here, but where's the fun in that, right? So I'm going to keep this remote session running for a second, and let's again hop back here to the alert itself. Now the next thing I'm going to do is actually drill into that particular resource, and we can see I can do that from here. It's going to open up another tab for me. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this use case, at the beginning of this demonstration, OpsRamp has performed both discovery and is performing monitoring on this resource, as well as many others in this environment. So we can see here on the resource, again, we still have those actionability items up here. I could, again, execute additional scripts. I could fire off another console from here. But we can also see that I've got attribute information on this resource. Because we do or did find Microsoft SQL on this box, we're presenting some nice dashboards for SQL as well. Got things like installed software, services, right? And of course, I could not only see those services, but I could start, stop, restart them from here. So that's just yet another way that I could attempt to restore service. I've got patch information available to me. We have all the various monitoring templates that have been applied to this resource and those metrics that are being pulled back as a result of those templates. So a lot of information available to me here in this view. Now, we started at this exercise by drilling into an email. That's the way that many of us receive alerts from the monitoring tools that we're leveraging today. Of course, another way that we could arrive at this information, if we head back here, would be via a dashboard. So as you can see here, OpsRamp has, again, full role-based responsive design, drag and drop, tons of custom and pre-built widgets available. So the dashboards are very robust. And these dashboards can give us a lot of information about our hybrid environment. So as I'm showing here, I've got my top 3 enterprise services, things like availability, alert trend, and so on and so forth. But just to give you a few other examples, maybe I am the team responsible for the performance of my Linux resources, right? This might be my view into the environment via OpsRamp. Maybe I am the team responsible for the performance of Kubernetes, right? And so I can see that information available to me here. I might be the group responsible for SQL performance. So this might be where I spend the majority of my time. Or Oracle performance. You get the idea. There is a lot of data here in the platform. And as such, we can present that data to many different personas that will be consuming this information. Now, one thing that we do see with OpsRamp, as I continue to cycle through a few more dashboards here, is organizations farming out these dashboards to the various business units. That's something that we don't traditionally see with legacy monitoring tools. And so here, if I'm in the support the accounting application, this might be a great view for me, right? I've got things like downtimes, server status, synthetics, latency, response time, availability. I've got a lot of information available to me here that pertains just to this particular application. Now from here, maybe what I'm going to do next is drill in and say, well, we've got an outage that's occurring in the accounting system. And that's going to take me to a view like this. Now what you're looking at here is an operational business service map. Right? These are logical groupings of resources that make up and support this top application here. And what's the benefit of that? Well, essentially we are simplifying IT operations by flattening the technology stack. And I'll give you a couple examples of that, right? So we can see, for example, here, I've got the North America Storage Services supports the accounting system. And I've got some NetApp clusters here. And if I drill into one of those NetApp clusters, not only do I have the same UI or the same interface that we saw when we looked at a Windows server, but I can drill in and look at things like dashboards, disks, aggregates. And it's funny, when I show this in person, typically someone raises their hand and says, yeah, but I could log into NetApp and get this information. And you see, that person's missing the point. That's the old way of doing it. You pull up NetApp, I'll pull up vCenter, somebody else is going to pull up UCS. We're going to all look at our separate consoles. We're going to all yell at each other. We're going to all blame the network guy, right? We've heard this story over and over again. In fact, many of us have been part of that story. But having this all in a single UI really means that I need fewer SMEs in my NOC, and my troubleshooting and triage of outages becomes that much easier. So if we step back here for another second, we can see, goodness, I've got the hypervisors of North America, and I can see vCenter here. And if I drill into this vCenter, again, the same look and feel. I've got attributes. I can see the VMs depending upon my rights. I can start, stop, restart, remote, run scripts, do lots of things with these VMs. But the one thing I want to show you up here in the top corner as well is that I've got a little triangle icon, and if I drill into that, that's going to take me to a topology map on this vCenter. And if we go a little bit deeper here, so OpsRamp is actually gathering relationship data as well. So we're doing this via different protocols like CDP, LLDP. We're using API calls against vCenter, against the various cloud service providers, to essentially build these maps to understand what is related to what. And why is that beneficial? Well, you know, these maps certainly can get a little unruly depending upon your environment. I don't know that too many people are spending their day looking at them. But we're very selfish with how we consume these things, right? Because this relationship data is pumped into OpsQ, our machine learning engine, and OpsQ then learns upstream, downstream relationships. That enables us to provide one of the three methods of event correlation, and that would be topology reinforced correlation. If I happen to lose an entire switch, and connected to that switch is an ESX host, and that ESX host has 100 guest machines on that, OpsRamp's going to know all that. And we're going to only get one event out of the system that says, hey, all these resources are down, but the reason they're down is because we have a critical alert that came in against this particular switch. Now, there's many other methods for which we're providing these topology maps as well. As I mentioned, we are starting to dip our toes in application topology mapping to provide correlation at the application level. We can see here I've mapped out Kubernetes, the relationship between my containers. And again, these are automatically built. Here would be a view in AWS of the relationships between my various EC2 instances. So very, very powerful to have this relationship data automatically discovered and then, of course, consumed by the machine learning for correlation purposes. Let's point one more thing out here. We can see as well, I've got synthetics available. So things like SQL clusters and UCS and vCenter, and you know, any of these things, when we get a red dot or line here or an alert against them, essentially what that's showing is that we've got an impact against the what? Well, against the integrity of this application. But I'm sure you've all seen this before. I could have everything green, but it takes 7 minutes to log into the accounting system, right? I mean, that essentially is a quality issue at that point. And so by pulling in synthetics into OpsRamp, I really can put the two together to really understand the overall health, in this case, of the accounting system. So here I can see that I'm also monitoring the OpsRamp portal. This is native to the platform. We're not leaning on other tools for this, although we certainly do have the ability to ingest alerts from AppDynamics, the New Relic, and Dynatraces of the world if you are into the code level application performance monitoring. But we also provide Selenium IDE, synthetic monitoring, SSL certificate monitoring, web service monitoring, and so on and so forth, native in OpsRamp. So here on this URL, again, it's the same look and feel that we've seen across different resource types. I've got things like response time, lookup time, connect time. I can see SSL certificate expiration here. We can be set up a notification to let you know X number of days before that happens. And just like any other resource, I mean, I could schedule maintenance on a website. I could schedule maintenance on an application, right? So some great parity there as well. So now that we've kind of mapped this out, let's go back for a second. Let's go back to my email because you saw that via remote control, via the resource itself, I could restart that service. I could run certain scripts to validate, right? Essentially, OpsRamp's made it a whole lot easier for me in IT operations to identify an issue, rapidly triage that issue, and then take the necessary action to restore that service or resolve that issue, right? And all without the VPN connection, all from within essentially a single browser. But we think that there's more that can be brought to the table here as a modern IT operations platform. And so we can see above here that in addition to the alert, I've also configured OpsRamp to trigger an automation to automatically restore this service when it goes down, but I need an approval to do so. At least that's how I've got this configured, right? So we can see that a task has been sent out to me, and if I drill into that task, here we can see that it brings me to that task. And I could certainly fill this out, but let's just make this quick here. I'm going to say, hey, look, you know what? I'm going to approve this task. We're going to say that it's going to start today. All right, I'm just going to say this is going to take 1 minute to resolve. And then here, I'm going to go ahead and say, look, OpsRamp's going to fix this, right? Please approve to restart the service. So we've got that automation or workflow in the OpsRamp platform. So if I go ahead and I submit this as resolved, well, there we can see that the task has been updated. Now there's a reason that I left that remote control session still running, because if I head back to the resource itself, let's do a quick refresh here. Now I can see that the SQL service is running. So OpsRamp has essentially healed this service interruption. And to show you what that looks like real quick, let's head all the way back here for a second and look at automation process definitions. So here I can see that I've got a process that's to restart a monitored process when it stops. So here I can see that this is going to be based on a signal essentially triggered by an alert. I do have this particular workflow configured to request approval. Now I get it, you probably wouldn't need an approval to restart a stopped service. But maybe instead you can think of this as a disk cleanup, or I need to auto scale, disk somewhere. These are types of things where you absolutely would want to have an approval in place. And we can also see here that if we approve, OpsRamp goes ahead and restarts that service. We're facilitating this ourselves, but we do have integrations with other tools out there like Ansible. If you wanted to have OpsRamp trigger Ansible to do the work, that's an option as well. We can then see that the alert's been updated, and then that ends this particular workflow. So when we think about, in closing here, OpsRamp's providing the automatic discovery of on-prem and cloud resources. That's network, storage, compute, virtual, containers, applications, synthetics, web services, SSL, so many different things that we're discovering. We're then layering the monitoring element on top of that. As we talked about, there's the correlation aspect, leveraging the machine learning and the big data at the center of the platform to do things like pattern-based, algorithmic or textual, topology-based correlation of those alerts. Additionally, we can correlate alerts in from other tools that you point to OpsRamp. We have literally 100+ pre-built integrations on the platform with other tools in the space. We've got the intelligent escalation or incident management, where we are opening up the various tickets in collaboration tools like the ServiceNow, like the Remedy, like the Jira, like the Slacks out there. We can certainly interface with that as well. We've got the remote control capabilities, the ability to run those scripts, and then as we can see here, the ability to essentially automate those playbooks or run books or workflows, whatever you choose to call them, to trigger an auto service restoration. And I know that you saw me go through, again, that approval process, but we absolutely, if you get to the point where you say this is a standard type of change, we can have OpsRamp trigger that automation automatically. Zero touch from an administrator. Really powerful stuff. So definitely want to thank you for taking the time to sit through this brief day in the life use case of OpsRamp's discovery to resolution capabilities. Of course, to learn more, you can head to opsramp.com. You can also schedule a full platform deep dive demonstration from there if that's something you're interested in. So thank you for your time today.